Greetings, I'm Shad, and I'm very excited for this video. If you've been following the saga here on Shadiversity with our intent to try and build a supergiant sword, you will know where this fits in with this saga. If you don't, to briefly just kind of explain it to you, one of the methods that we're going to try and do to make a supergiant sword is to make it out of carbon fiber. But to do that, we need to see how viable it would even be. Is it possible? Would it be able to hold an edge, be durable? And so to do that, we have made a smaller knife, as you see here. Now this knife is actually, technically it's a sax, but it's like a sci-fi one because this is actual carbon fiber with a steel edge. That's one of the proof of concepts, because one of the issues with trying to make a carbon fiber, knife is that carbon fiber wouldn't hold an edge, okay? The only thing that would give an edge is actually the resin, and I've tried it out. We'll show it a bit later. We actually have a carbon fiber knife here. It's pretty garbage, but by adding this blade here, maybe we'll be able to do some really interesting stuff. So yes, we want to find out how viable it is to even have a carbon fiber blade, because in addition to the quest to make a supergiant sword, there is this kind of question that the sword community has had and just played with as a fun experimental thing is, could we improve swords, knives and stuff like that with more modern materials? Because we use steel, and steel is one of the very best materials in terms of the balance of properties. You want a level of flex, but you want it to be really strong and hard. You want to be able to hold an edge. You don't want to be too heavy, but you do want some weight. And so steel is actually one of the very best materials that we've had. The question is, could we find another material, a more modern material that gives us more optimal results? And carbon fiber is one of those interesting questions because it's very, very strong, but it's also very light. And will that impact cutting performance? And if we kind of do a composite of materials, adding a actual spring steel edge to it, right? Carbon, spring steel edge, would that also enable it to still hold a really good cutting edge for long enough to be functional? And so this is the concept, and we are going to be testing this carbon fiber knife in this video right here, and I am very interested to see what happens. In fact, if you want to see the build of this, where we are, well, when I say we, Tareth and Nate, you guys made this.
Yes.
Well, yeah, mostly Tareth. I have to credit where credit is due. I'm no engineer. I can put things together pretty quickly, but something as gorgeous as this.
This isn't gorgeous, this is a prototype.
It's a prototype.
Yeah, this one is really important. It's a really important step in the giant sword, Titan sword project, because we needed a lot of data. And we still need data, and that's what this video is basically all going to be. It's basically going to be like a sword review. Pretty much. We're going to be doing we're going to be putting it through its paces. First off, we needed to find our thickness when we were making it. We needed to test one of the methods of attaching a spring steel blade on it. And so this one is our first one, and we've got another one in the pipes where we do
something longer. And so we're going to actually have a full-length sword, not a giant sword, but a functional full-length sword, because one of the other interesting things I really want to find out, which would be for the sword thing, is how well it would function in combat if the reduced weight gives you a more significant edge in combat versus like a regular sword.
That one I'm really interested to find out. But this video, we've got like a lot of almost destruction tests we've got to get done on this, because even though we don't want to break it, we've got to find out what it can do.
And we actually haven't started the sword version yet, because we need to test this first to get all the useful data, and then we can actually apply that to the next one.
Exactly, because we don't know if the attachment method for the spring steel blade here will hold.
Well, not only the attachment method, but how the steel is actually seated on the carbon fiber. Shad has a different way he wants to test. This was the way that I thought would be best for something like the Titan sword, but we're going to test his version on the next one.
And if you want to see how it's actually attached, we have the entire build video already available here on Shadiversity, so do go check that out, because this is some creative stuff, and it's pretty darn smoothly attached. Like, you can barely feel the lip there.
It's a prototype.
You're very self-critical there, Tara.
Well, I am. It's genuinely a prototype. I'm not too worried about how it looks.
There's a little bit of bleed of resin, and there was the handle has a nice wrap on it, but it wasn't as clean and plain as you would have liked, so immediately, no, it's just a prototype. I know it is actually a prototype.
It just needs to be functional, just so we can test it.
Exactly.
That's all we need for this.
So, gentlemen, what are your predictions before we really put this through its paces? What do you think will happen to it?
So I think it'll excel at the easier tests, things like water bottles, pool noodles, stuff like that. I think it'll be fine. I think it's once we get into the real destructive sort of sword testing stuff where we're really going to be seeing what's going to happen here. I am worried that we will snap it in half.
Snap it in half. Wow. See, I'm a bit more confident. I don't think it'll snap. If anything might fail, it could be the blade attached, but I actually think it's going to hold up more than we might predict. And interestingly enough, swords, they're like most swords are really strong against soft targets. Most swords will get damaged against any hard targets, some swords more than others, and we recently have a video where we tested a katana against some very hard targets and saw some significant damage with the hard targets, but it held up interestingly well. I think this might hold up even better. If you like this type of content and the fact that we can invest more money than you might realize, because we've had to invest a lot to get the materials to do this type of stuff, your help means more than we can express. And so if you like to see this content, you want to support it, please, anyone who's able to donate any amount. Player is a great platform, as well as Subscribestar. We have channel memberships that you can get access to right here on YouTube, as well as Patreon. And those of you who are able to support us, we can give stuff back to you, as well as behind the scenes content, early content that we will release on the channel, but you get access to early, as well as access to the live streams that we do here on Shadowversity, and even extended versions of videos like this. So that's all great content that you can get if you support us. Any amount means more than we can express, and genuinely it's thanks to our supporters that we can keep going forward with the security we need to make bigger and better content for you. And so let's find out how much this thing weighs.
Let's go.
Yeah,
let's do it. So we have a couple of things to compare this carbon fiber knife to, and one of the ones that we've selected is actually a little goodie that was sent to us by United Cutlery. This is their Gladius.
This is a Honshu Gladius.
Honshu Gladius, which is actually really good.
Yeah.
This thing has a really great blade profile. It's light. I'm not a big fan of this kind of bulbous thing in the middle.
This
the tip is serious business.
And also, like, it's got some really nice features, just even the double guard, so that you have something nice and steel. Little, I imagine that's for camping, for being able to pop a drink, and a glass breaker at the bottom, which is always good for emergencies.
So the reason we've got this here is because it's kind of
same size, good weight comparison. If you are interested in this Honshu Gladius by United Cutlery, we'll put a link in the description, but there's some great things to really appreciate and like about this. So the weight of this, which is about comparable size,
512 grams.
So half a kilo.
Yeah.
Half a kilo.
We'll put freedom units down, of course.
And so now, let's us have a look. Oh, by the way, look at this nice sheath it comes in. Let's have a weigh of this. Let's see.
It is 178 grams.
Wow.
Grams. I don't know what that is in Imperial, but we'll put that down. But that is insanely light. But to add to Nate's point that he just said about the scales, I don't know if you felt it when it didn't have the scales.
I have not, no.
But it felt very flimsy. Not that it was, but it just felt that way.
Because it's so thin.
Yes, and as soon as you put the scales on, you're like, okay,
it has a handle now.
This feels good. This feels all right. We also have another comparison here, and this is a little folding, like, actual manufactured carbon fiber knife.
This is actually complete carbon fiber with no steel edge. It came with a sharpened edge into the carbon fiber, and in terms of how long it retained that sharp edge, I opened one plastic blister pack and the edge was gone. Yeah. And you can see visible damage on the edge, and this has nothing there now.
So what is it? What's the equivalent of this now? Oh, a slightly sharpened butter knife.
Like it's a butter knife, basically.
Just to add, it does have things like steel liners and screws and stuff like that. It's just the blade and the actual scales, which are carbon fiber. But a carbon fiber knife for all intents and purposes, yeah.
Well, let's see how much this one weighs. Huh?
46 grams.
46 grams.
Well, let's head over to the cutting area and start testing. So, we are ready for our cutting test now. We're going to start with this pool noodle. Are you ready? He's ready.
He's ready. I think we better get off.
So I'm going to try and do a strong cut, followed with a lighter cut to see how much the blade will take it through the material. That's weird, so it's bending all the way down and then kind of getting sliced up. Not as much power for this one. I'm just gonna That's an interesting result. Wow, I got a lot to say about the feedback I got from that. So, first cut sailed through like a breeze.
Right-handed cut.
That was a right-hand cut. And look, my edge alignment was on point with that one. Really nice, really smooth. The next couple of attempts were raising cuts. Now, this was interesting because I struggled to get through. If we have a look, there's like this, these are the cuts that came from there.
Yep.
And so it's like the noodle kind of bent down. It dug into it a good amount, but what I also found, I felt there wasn't anything bracing the strike, which then got it to bounce out, but the downward strikes has its own structure holding it in.
And pushing it down.
Which helped push it down. And so that's what it was facing there. And now that could legitimately be a problem you could face with any sword.
Yeah.
It's
that
just
might
the nature of the
be a
material.
thing, yeah.
Next one, as it comes through, you can actually see it's starting to tear here. Less cutting action, and when it reached here, the cut had stopped. But there was enough momentum in it to rip through the rest of the material. That's actually a good sign for this because I was worried the blade would have no momentum at all.
Right.
But it could be that the additional speed, because it's lighter, is somewhat balancing it out. I still don't think it's as powerful as steel, but there's momentum in it. Now, the interesting thing about cuts is that the whole point of swords is that swords actually don't need a lot of mass to do devastating cuts. Where you can't need mass is when you're trying to get through thicker, stronger material like bone. But this would definitely cut into flesh, quite devastatingly so. This is proof of concept for me that this could cut serious flesh, arteries, and make it quite nasty.
Well, done a pool noodle. We'll maybe do some more pool noodle tests, but
because you guys want to go, don't you?
Yes. We do. But before we do that, let's test some water bottles. That's the standard.
This is true.
For swords.
This is true.
So I think it's some water time.
Alrighty.
Here you go. Wet and wild time.
Hey! Well, that was interesting. The biggest significant factor into the performance of that is actually the sharpness of the blade. I think it's like, you can feel it. This is not as sharp as you would like it to be to get through bottles as easy.
I disagree.
You think?
Like, yes, sharpness obviously plays a factor. It does. But depending on the type of cut we did, we're able to get...
We did get through them. It could actually be the angle of the edge. This is a single bevel.
Yes.
And so as a result, you think it's in line with the blade, but the actual edge is facing further down like that.
Oh,
and I noticed cuts coming from this side seem to have been doing better than coming in on this side.
Perhaps, but it does have an edge on both sides. I did put a little bit of an angle on each
but
side.
the predominant bevel
yes, you are
from the carbon fiber is on one side.
One side is cleaving, one side is cutting.
Possibly. In terms of resistance, I certainly felt more resistance in the biting in of the bottle. That could be user error for me. You guys were able to get a cut through it, okay, which shows you can cut through bottles with these. Like this one was a bizarre one.
This one, I think it was a 45 degree of some sort.
Yeah.
And it turned it into spaghetti.
It just kind of exploded it. But I think something that I noticed, because Chad, you went first, then Tyrant, you had a couple of shots, and then I sort of had a shot or two after I was taking a look. You were cutting more in the meat of it, whereas on the couple of successful ones that Tyrant got, he was cutting more tippy.
Which does make sense.
Which does make sense, because you're getting more speed, less resistance. So I kind of feel like it goes to that speed thing that I was saying might have been a disadvantage.
We had more trouble with it, but we could cut with it.
We could.
Okay, so this is still proving the concept at the moment. Now we need to test durability.
Before we do that, I think we should just do a couple of little...
quick, fast cuts?
Yeah, quick, fast cuts, just so we can because I think if we do more horizontal cuts, I think we're going to get nice slices every time.
And I'm interested to test the right versus left theory I have.
Yep. I only got a couple of cuts myself. I'd like to get a couple more in just to sort of, you know, evaluate. So
Yep.
Let's do it. Nice! So that was interesting, and even from this test, right, it's clearly got an edge, right? But it's slicing sharp, not push. See, I'm pushing, but as soon as I add that slice, we got ham, baby. There are parts of the edge that seemed a bit duller, like especially the top. Wow, yeah, that's much duller.
Especially now that we've been using it.
I was going to say, which is interesting because that's where I was getting my nice cuts. Wow, I was getting my nice cuts on water bottles. I apparently fail at cutting these.
Yeah.
Which is like, you don't know the fine kind of quirks you have, like you can't really see. Maybe we'll get some feedback in the slow motion, but I had a lot of trouble with the water bottles.
Yeah, and seemed to be fine with the pool noodles.
And so I don't know what I was doing, what Nate was doing, but what this kind of lets us know is that this isn't the easiest thing to cut with, but you can cut with it. So proof of concept, it's there.
Still valid.
It might be that because of the material, because of the size, shape, all those sorts of things, your edge alignment is even more paramount than with a regular sword.
Maybe.
And because there's no mass behind it, if your edge alignment's off just by a little bit,
Overall, it actually cut better than I was expecting. I was really afraid. I first cut on the pool noodle, I was thinking, I don't think it's going to get through, but it sailed through. This thing is crazy light.
So light.
It's hard to really convey how light this is. Like, look at how crazy light this thing is, right? And as a result, I was thinking that was going to impact its performance more than what it did. It actually still cut surprisingly well for how toy-like light this is.
Now, something to mention is when we get to the sword versions, we are going to try and get them as close to razor sharp as humanly possible. Because this is just a prototype. Now, these tests they're important and they're fun and they're good to look at, but these aren't actually the really important tests of this video. They're actually not at all.
Just some preliminary tests, basically, to figure out some basics.
This is making me more optimistic about the sword with how this is performing.
The point of today's video, the point of making this at all, is actually to test the carbon fiber itself. Now, the reason why we need to test it is because when we do the Titan sword, it's nearly 3 meters long.
Yeah, we make a mistake on that. That's a big mistake.
And we did mention in the build video that how we layer the carbon fiber affects strength. Now, when we get to something like the Titan sword, we can't actually offset the layers at 90 degrees and all these. We can only do slight...
Kind of like an angle. I like
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
So this has only been offset a tiny little bit. So now when we get into the strength tests, this is the most important part to moving forward with the Titan sword project.
Which basically means we're going to have to start doing some...
Well, we'll come to that.
edge.
We'll come to that. First, we'll start with something a little softer, and then we're doing edge on edge.
All right.
Any predictions? Because I think this is going to kill your hands. This is going to hurt. Like, it is going to hurt.
This is where the penetration and cutting capacity I expect to be far less than something metal, like steel, I mean. But I do think it'll hold up. I'm a bit more optimistic about the durability on this one.
We'll agree to disagree.
We'll
Why don't
find
we
out.
test it? Let's
We'll
just
find
test
out.
it.
Yep, let's do it. You know, I'm starting to notice something about you, Tyranth.
What's that?
You expect everything around you to be weaker than what it is.
It kind of does, doesn't it?
Because it is all the time.
So we had an experience where when Tyranth's first day he came in, we were going to test something on a plastic table and he was very convinced that it would break. The table would not be able to hold up under the pressure. But it did.
Did I not also immediately break like a 3-inch thick piece of wood?
You did. You did
Yes.
Notice the baritone? Did I not immediately break up?
I have these things for a reason. It's not like I just do them.
Well, you are expecting the carbon fiber to not hold up to this.
I am expecting cracks for this.
Cracks?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, as much as I know you might be sort of hoping for the carbon fiber, I think I'm on Tyrant's side. I feel like if you hit this here, you're going to see stress all the way around this section here.
Don't get me wrong, I want it to survive because the next test after this is even better.
I have this sixth sense about predicting material strength and stuff, and I can just sense that it's going to hold up. The carbon fiber is going to survive.
All right, let's
But
test it then.
the blade might disconnect and get dislodged. There's only one way to find out.
There is, which
do it.
means we
Can't
step
wait!
back.
Can't wait!
Striking in 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, baby!
Settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down.
Like, I don't even feel loosening on the blade, and there is no cracks at all. Held up like a beast, man.
Alright.
Who was right?
Alright.
Who was right?
Alright.
You're right.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
far.
If I've caught that right, Tyrant, was that the look of, you're alright, you might be right?
Okay. I am man enough to admit when I was wrong. I was wrong. I was genuinely putting as much strength as I could with the amount of weight we have.
Forgive
here.
me for strutting in victory.
And just
There
so,
is such a thing as a sore winner, Sean. Just stand still.
just so you guys are clear, I actually, no joke, I was really going, I was,
We saw.
and now obviously there is the weight issue, it's very light, so it's kind of a bit different. But if you want to see this damage here, like, I wasn't pulling my punches.
Look at the damage.
But this was mine here, Shad, and this was your little one here.
Not that it's a competition.
It's not a competition.
No. Still held up though.
Yes, it did. Well, it survived that,
Yeah.
to my surprise, and I was wrong. You were correct.
Predictions. Carbon fiber is no joke. There's a reason why people use it.
We have another test you have to do. So how about you put this on, or you put this on? Who wants to? I'll hold the blade that you guys are going to swing at. I'm going to go get some more protective equipment. I've got a pair of goggles myself here, over there somewhere. Who is going to swing first?
Me.
I'm going to need another glove.
I'm doing it. We're doing it live. Alrighty, we're going to be testing edge on edge with our standard edge testing sword. We want to see how well carbon fiber with a steel blade will hold up edge on edge.
Are you ready, Shad?
I'm ready, baby.
All right, striking in 3, 2, 1.
No more damage than you would expect on a regular sword, honestly.
Not really. I was
What kind of-
expecting deformation to come up the blade.
See,
Would you like me to try it?
remember what I said? I said that the carbon fiber would deform before it cracks. What do we have here?
I'm curious, how did that feel for you? Like, because you've sparred with, proper steel swords.
Oh.
How did that feel in terms of that, I'm saying? Was that like nothing? Other than the strength that you were putting into it?
Actually, compared to like if someone had have hit me with, say, a dirk or a sax, you can still feel that, especially when it's up here on the weak of the blade. I didn't feel like much. Like there was force, but it was like air force kind of compared to solid object force.
This is why I'm really excited to test the full-length sword in sparring to see how its stopping power to deflect, but also we'll see.
Well, this is like, I'm a little less cautious on it cracking now.
Look, we genuinely need to test it. We need to break this thing because I need to know how strong it is. So then when it's proportional to the live
Yes.
blade.
That's a significant chunk. Can I have a look?
Yeah.
It is structurally as rigid as before. The thing is though, it's still usable. Like if we did that with the katana, it would have more damage.
Oh yeah, it would have taken
Yeah.
a chunk out because it's much
I
stiffer.
probably would have broken it.
And so this is actually more durable
Yeah.
than the katana at this point in terms of edge damage.
Well, let's do some more because
If we really want to try and break it, we're gonna up the game.
It doesn't matter whether Tyrant or Shad is hitting this.
I hit that quite on the tip, actually.
Unless the blades bite, and then there is the muscle power of the person behind it pulling on that blade or trying to rip through, there's no force going into this.
We are really stressing this. Like, even up to now, basically, if we will make a sword out of this, but this is proving that nearly every type of standard abuse a regular sword goes through, it will handle it quite, like, because what we're about to do is not standard for regular sword abuse.
But I feel like what Tyrant was actually pointing out before is really why this isn't taking as much damage, because there's no mass behind it to actually, you know, transfer that damage. So having it braced like this.
When you say transfer damage, bear in mind that damage that it's receiving is from the energy of the collision.
Yes.
And so there is a lot of force that's going back into this that's getting damaged.
But nominal momentum behind it.
When two swords clash, it's the kinetic force of both of them not giving. They both stop, relatively speaking. With this, it's basically deflecting back.
Well, that's why the actual proper size sword tests are going to be really important for sparring to see how well it can block other swords.
We need more safety gear.
Oh boy. But now we want to actually try and break this. And so we have the carbon fiber knife right here braced. We're going to be hitting it with the big one. And let's see what we can do.
All right, striking in 3, 2, 1.
Whoa! Oh, check that out! Yeah, that went through the metal and everything.
If you could brace it, they definitely bite.
Yeah.
They bite.
Yeah. Wow. And so its mass to get deflected is a feature of this to avoid this potential, because when it's actually braced, the metal is so thin that you can actually chop through. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting chopping through the metal. I thought the metal might bend down and give or disconnect. I was not expecting it to actually chop through.
This spring steel here is like, I think it's maybe a millimeter, maybe even less. It's very, very thin.
All right. So now, Tyrant, if you don't chop this in two,
all right, I'll chop it in two.
I'm going to be very disappointed. 3, 2, 1. You broke it where I cut it.
Now that kind of makes sense, because the amount of force going into one zone, it just...
Now, you had trouble with the penetration there.
I did, because I tried to go on a bit of angle because I didn't want to go straight down. I was afraid I was going to hit the screw right there. Okay. But yeah.
It kind of makes sense. If you're doing that, it's now like as soon as it takes a small critical failure, it starts to critically fail.
Wow! That was awesome. I mean, it performed vastly better than I was expecting, and only achieved critical failure when everything was stacked against it and it was braced.
And it did show that whole thing with mass. Like even here, where we've got some of, you know, the chips that go all the way down, the chips are getting smaller as it gets towards the tip of the blade, and you have less and less mass.
Yep.
So,
I mean, it cut better than I was expecting on the pool noodles. It wasn't great at cutting, but it cut well enough to be dangerous and effective, and it was way more durable than some of us were expecting.
that's fair enough. And something else as well, fighting style wise, you can learn, as you know, to fight with weak or fight with strong. If you specifically fight with weak and you're just there to deflect and let everything go around you, it's probably a really good blade for it.
What's crazy about this, right, is that this can do damage. This was the proof of concept. And so an actual sword made out of this, right, is going to be crazy light and fast.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh boy.
I know I said it before, but I'll say it again, we need more safety gear.
You're like...
So now we have very, very valuable data. Now, as to the cutting, there's a few different variables. First off, the bevel, the design of the bevel that we went with versus, including how sharp the blade was as well. So those are two variables that did, they had an impact. They just did. When it comes to the sword, it'll hopefully be a little bit different. In terms of the attachment method for the blade,
it held strong. I think the other one would work as well, though.
It's really hard to do. This is so easy to do.
Every time they say this, guys, I am just nodding and agreeing and going along with it like you guys, because they're always like, the other attachment. What other attachment
Well, this
method?
one worked. This one did not fail at all. And I'll be...
But we're not going to talk about the other attachment method, are we?
No, we're not. But for this particular attachment method, I didn't attach it as securely as I could because I was just trying to see. The whole point was to test it.
It was just a series of pins that worked really well.
The point of the area where I thought it would fail, I thought the carbon fiber would mostly hold up, but the thing that I thought it was most likely was the blade detaching. And out of everything, the blade is the thing that's stuck on the strongest, it seems.
And all I used for the blade, as in the actual dedicated build video, was I used some epoxy, and I used, now when we say pins, they're not actually pinned on each side, because that would actually crack the carbon fiber. These are just 2 aluminum pins with glue that are holding it in.
Wow.
And the other reason you said you didn't want to peen it when we were going through this is because all of a sudden that nice beveled edge that you have when you're slicing through has these knobby bits all the way along it. So we're trying to avoid that.
This did anyway, but for other reasons. But this method worked perfectly, as I said it would.
I still think the other one would look good.
Well, we're going to try both.
The other one will give us an even bevel.
Hang on. So we're going to be trying.
To do, though.
We're going
it's
to be
actually really hard to do.
Good. We're going to be trying the other one, aren't we?
I hope so.
I can try it, but
because I feel like I want to know what this is.
a little bit of behind the scenes before we sign out. If we try it on your method, there is a chance that it may not work and compromise the entire thing. And we don't have enough carbon fiber to keep trying again. We have enough to do 2 swords. One is your training one, and one with an actual edge. If we screw up the one with the actual edge, we don't have enough.
But with your support, we will. Like, if you do want to help
That
us,
is
because this is showing very positive signs for the next stages, and for the ultimate stage, which is the super giant sword. We don't have the materials for the super giant sword yet. It's expensive.
We haven't.
But we do have the materials for the actual full-size sword. That's the next stage, and it's only with support from you guys that we're able to invest in projects like this. And if you want to see the possibilities, well, please do help us out. And you can do it on Player, you can do it on Subscribestar, channel memberships, or Patreon. If most of the people, even just 10% of the people who watch this video, are willing to give us $1 a month, that would be more than enough to give us full security. It would be great.
And you guys get like a whole heap of behind the scenes stuff as well, like
dedicated
so much.
videos. We have actual dedicated videos that we're making specifically for behind the scenes, where we get to be a bit more casual, and you guys get to hear a bit inside, unfiltered
Shadowversity.
Because there's a lot that goes into making these videos, a lot that doesn't go into the end product, because you guys want a clear and concise video, which is great. But there's also a lot we can talk about. There's stuff that happens, and we like to talk about it. So you can also check that out there.
I'm psyched. Like, carbon fiber swords
talked about in sci-fi all the time.
a composite steel edge, from what we are seeing, is highly plausible and potentially devastatingly effective because it's so light and so fast. But that's what we're going to test out next to confirm.
There was, just before we sign out, there was no cracking throughout the entire blade at all throughout testing, other than right at the end when we actually cut it in half.
Do you think that confirms the more narrow lacing of carbon fiber?
I think we would get the same results with the other offsets. I don't think it matters as much as people think.
Yeah.
I think just the construction method of a composite material itself is enough.
But even so, like, it's more narrow, but I reckon it's doing enough.
As long as it's not too parallel, we give it a bit.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be 90 degrees, but we give it a bit.
Oh, I'm excited. Thank you for everyone who has joined us on this video, and we really do hope to see you on the future videos where we explore this and even more stuff on the next episode of Shadowversity. Hope to see you there, and until then, farewell.
Coming soon to Shadowversity.
Get you going. Hey, oh, jeez.